Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today is November 27th. It's Monday, 10 a.m. on the East Coast, and you are listening and watching the Daily AI Show live. And today we got almost the entire group. Only Aaron is out today. So I want to say welcome to Jyunmi, Beth, Karl, Andy, Robert. Good to see you, Robert. And Brian. And we're back for another week for all of our folks and listeners in the States. I hope you guys had a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend. But we are ready to kick off another solid week. We have some really good topics this week that I'm seriously looking forward to. But today's topic is about no code versus low code versus code, but not even really so much a versus. I think where my brain is really on where are the limitations of something like no code? Where does it stop becoming a profitable endeavor or a time-including intensive endeavor? Because there are certainly things that shouldn't be built with no code, or you're going to run into maybe future problems. You're going to paint yourself into a corner. So when I was thinking about this topic, I was thinking about let's sort of break this out, because I think there's probably a couple different definitions. It's like, Beth, you were saying before the show, and what, why can't I think of it? Salesforce. It's like, what does Beth work with? Salesforce this Monday, guys. But I want to kick it off before I get rambling here. I wanted to kick it off with just sort of a quote or a stat that I saw in an article from a company called Echo, who has a no-code solution. So they wrote a pretty good blog, and they said Gartner estimates that the low-code application development will be responsible for more than 65% of application development activity by 2024. So that's low code, not specifically no code, but that's probably a good place to sort of kick it off, because 65% is obviously a standout percentage. And we're only talking about, 2024 is now only roughly 4 weeks away. So let's kick it off. I don't know who wants it. Maybe Jyunmi, you were sort of talking. We were talking before we went live, and you were saying, maybe yours or Andy's definition of no code, low code may differ or be more specific. So why don't you kick things off, and we'll kind of kick it from there.
Right. I in terms of definitions, for me, no code is anyone with no coding experience can use that tool to build out some sort of function, some sort of, executable, if you will. Low code is you need a little bit of understanding of how the pieces work to actually get a result. I think in broad strokes, that's essentially it. I think some of the tools that we were briefly going over, such as Descript or Runway and stuff like that, those I wouldn't classify as no code, because you aren't really using those are creative tools, but not necessarily software development, right? I think that's where or some sort of operations or that kind of field where you would need some coding experience to work with those various systems or languages to interconnect. And I'd say that's basically the definition for me.
I'll add a little angle on it. So we didn't really hear about no code or low code until the advent of the large language models and conversational AI. And code is a language. There are multiple languages out there. And one of the incredible capabilities of the LLMs is that they can understand any language. Doesn't matter which one. And coding is done in languages. So you can select that language, and LLMs can be tuned to generate code in response to text. And that's what low code or no code really is talking about. You're using an LLM that's trained on coding languages to generate code. And there's plenty of examples of that. Code Interpreter is within ChatGPT, and some of you may have seen that as an option on GPTs, for example, or elsewhere. And so when you invoke that particular capability of ChatGPT, it will be able to respond to some of your requests by actually generating Python code typically and executing that code. So ChatGPT itself is capable of no code coding to create an application or a function, But what's more interesting to me is taking that capability of the LLMs and generating applications that I could never write myself. I'd always have to hire CTOs who had computer science degrees and a team of software engineers to write the code and build the applications and do all the integrations that are necessary to do it. Now, there's a host of different low code and no code tools. Just name one, for example, called Flutterflow. The team here can mention a bunch of others that can allow you to build an application. And I'm talking about a sophisticated application without ever really knowing how to write a line of code. So that would be my addition to the definition of what is. I think Jyunmi gave a fine definition of the distinction between low code and no code and what it should be used for.
And I'm going to put my Salesforce hat on, and it's reminding me I should have a Salesforce hat. Like there should be a hey. Salesforce has been doing this for a giant portion of the amount of time that it has existed. So it's not just large language model. Large language model allows you to do it in a different way. But Salesforce's low code has been much more like letting admins play with Lego blocks, right? And the low code means to me that like if it's low code, you can turn your Lego block over and like get in the code and do something in it, and then it still stays in its contained Lego block. And what that allowed people to do was have apps that were built on top of the Salesforce platform that did not need a dev in it. And then it can be maintained by somebody else who also has a low code understanding, right? Like you don't necessarily need a developer who's paying attention to that the whole time, or even an architect.
So if I were to use everybody's definitions here, because it seems like you all kind of had an appending to the previous one, and it's interesting because which is why this topic is very hard to nail down. So if I were to basically create a job description I'm looking to hire somebody and they need to be proficient at no code solutions or low code solutions, well, I mean, what would I expect of them? So given all these definitions, I'm curious what you would put in their requirements.
I would frame it to the field that you're going to be putting them in. How is it applied? So like if you were in marketing, for example, right, you would use no code solutions to build out email funnels or marketing campaigns and things like that. And you see those kinds of solutions for quite a while now in tools like Klaviyo or MailChimp or any of those services. But essentially putting together a flow like that before those services or those features existed, you would have to build out the automation on the back end.
So this is a very good answer. I love that. This really grows to my point. I think that in my head, when you ask the question, what is a no code solution or no coding, whatever technical skill set, it's kind of raised itself up to a more of a social term or more of a general term that you use to describe problem solving, which is what you just did. Is like no code, or usually you say, I want you to be able to be C++ or Fortran or assembly or whatever programming language. Now you're just going to say, I want to know you're good at applying technical solutions using the technology that's available, whether they're packaged like Beth was saying, or they're whatever. I mean, the way Andy was saying. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think you just nailed it, Robert. I mean, you just kind of nailed it, which is, and Jyunmi was saying it too. It goes to the specialty, but you're right. Like going back to if I was going to write a job description in it, it's probably going to say stuff like proficient and knowledgeable in Zapier, Make. It's going to say things like, like we used to see Adobe, proficient at Adobe products, right? Whatever the case, if that's what they're using, Slack, these kind of things. But also, it's going to have to be somebody who is a generalist in the sense that they are able to take pretty much any types of Lego blocks and go apply to a new software that they probably have not used and quickly start developing and creating no code solutions in there. And it's going to have to be somebody who understands that says, I've never used this tool before, but if you hire me, I have full confidence that within a very short period of time, I can be building in there and actually developing new applications because I understand Zapier, because I understand Make, because I'm very, very capable of going in there and doing it. I'm not saying me, by the way, I'm just saying in general. So I love that. I love what you're kind of saying about that. I think there are some tools out there like Zapier. Zapier, I would say, is probably like one of the quick ones, which, by the way, sometimes that's low code as well. That's not always no code.
Sure.
Zapier isn't definitely always plug and play.
But yeah. And so, and to piggyback on that, I'm sorry, Karl, I know you want to jump in, but I had a call last week with the University of Tennessee, as you know, I'm consulting with them to help them with their new program, the College of Emerging and Collaborative Studies, they call it. They're creating an AI degree, and it's very sophisticated. They did a lot of stuff before they even asked the business community to come in with our opinions. But a lot of people were saying on this call was basically kind of the idea that you're saying is we don't need them to have these technical knowledge. We need them to have the soft skills of problem solving. And it's like, and in order to get that, it's not going to, I hate to say it, but it's not going to be a college degree. It's going to be interning, and so that's why this program is a big part of their credits are interning at a company that they can get those soft skills and problem solving experience. Because, a lot of people don't have the thought, I need to go to AI. I need to go to these tools. I need to search out solutions or Zapier automations. I mean, I knew about Zapier for years, never touched it. I mean, never, I knew somebody, I just knew the word Zapier, and I said, can we do a Zapier? So I was like, now I know it. What do you think, Karl?
A lot of things cross my mind, so when we say no code, low code, immediately something called Bubble comes to mind, right? Bubble.io, where you are building actual applications. Although you could say that it is still code, but it's just visual, because a lot of people could rather see if they can see the blocks and put it in rather than actually typing in code, whether it's Python to go through it. It's easier. Same thing you would probably say like Langflow, right? Instead of using code through LangChain, you just use Langflow. Literally the same thing. It's just now visual. So when I think of low code, no code, would you consider that low code, no code? Because technically you are still building with code, but now it's visual that enables a lot more people to be able to do it rather than just go through the language. So,
but I think that really tees up this question right here that we just got from one of our users. And what you're saying is drag and drop. Like Langflow is kind of a drag and drop. Respell is a drag and drop. Make is drag and drop. Or Wizard option is kind of Wizard. I guess is GPT. It's asking you questions about what you want. And those are all no code, right? And so they're asking the question: are those best for those for no coding? Well, how are you even familiar with them, right? So you have to have some technical understanding of that. There's tools out there that offer this kind of thing. And I think it's more about what we said before, Jyunmi, is about creating a solution, about problem solving. And that's more important than the solution. But knowing these are out there and knowing what they're capable of. So this is one of the big things that keep on saying to people is you don't need to know all the ins and outs. You don't need to be the DevOps person if you're trying to be helping a client. You just need to know what it's capable of and what tools are available. This is why all of us on this call, pretty much our full-time job is learning about what's going on in AI.
So
let me add that the whole idea of drag and drop means that you have an object. And in coding, there's this idea of objects that you create and then you can reuse in your code. So object modeling and then drag and drop elements like in the low code or no code automation tools that we've described here. Bubble for application development, Make and Zapier for integrations. The code that's being replaced in those cases is API code. There's a quite rigorous process by which you have to write code in order to integrate one application to another, and that's what APIs are all about. But the drag and drop modeling of that replaces your having to need to know what those lines of code are, and instead you just connect this block to this block. And so I think that another example in the world of e-commerce is that we've had low-code tools for writing a website for a long time.
Oh, long time.
Wix, Squarespace, etc. One of the things that many people here in the business world would have thought about in order to, solve their business objectives would be, okay, we got to build a website that does X. And you'd have to turn to a development team to do that. Well, you don't really have to do that anymore. Shopify is now building AI into their tools that lets you do it in a text interaction. Presumably, I haven't tried it on Shopify, but there are other tools. Framer comes to mind as one that is an AI tool that will build a website for you, but it also can kind of dig into deeper functionality than just listing products and allowing you to check out. But we've had listing products and allowing you to check out in a low-code form for a long time now.
And Andy, I think you really hit it on the head for me. Is it's lowering barriers, right? So having more capability available to people and to implement and create those solutions, like you said, Robert. The barrier is much lower, so you can have people who are in their specialization start building solutions for whatever use cases come up without having to rely on your dev or your DevOps team.
I wanted to drop in a example of a low code, like an actual new example. For those who have ChatGPT Plus, the 1, 2, 3, I think it's number 4 on. It's surpassed even some of the GPTs that OpenAI developed. It's, I think, the number 1 custom built GPT. It's called Grimoire by I think Mind Goblin Studios. I can't remember.
Nick
That.
Bobos.
Yes. I believe it, and I've been testing it just very, very casually, but it's supposed to be that low, no code. I want to build something. It will help you build something. And that actually transitions me to what David, who's listening to our show, thank you, David. His comment was, seems to me low code and no code solutions that have existed for years before ChatGPT should be very worried about their future viability. I don't know. What does everybody think about that?
I think in a general sense, because AI is so capable and it will just increase in capability, everyone needs to take a pause and take a look at whatever their business model is, whatever their tech is, whatever the product is, really. But I think it really comes down to use, right? The use cases. We personally still find that certain things are still easier to do with the incumbent tech than using the AI version. Will it be that way in 6 months? I don't know, maybe not. But like, for example, using Wix or Squarespace or something like that to build out a website, that is less than 5 minutes. It's pick a template, put in some text, and your website is literally done. Versus Framer, where you can put in your text prompt and it'll build out something for you, which will take a few minutes, and then you make changes and things like that. Did I find building off of Squarespace easier than Framer? Yes. Will that change in a couple months? Probably. But I think my point is that there are certain tools right now that are still just a better user experience, and because they're the incumbent, they still have a little bit of runway. But to take a look at it and make sure that however they're built, and see if there's like a moat or anything around that, most definitely they'll have to check that.
There are times where it's just better to use code, and GPT can like make your code, right? Wix is like Squarespace and Wix are 5 minutes to build the site and like 5 hours to explain to the client that you can't actually change that spacing because it's a template. And if we wanted to do that, then like that was a different menu item that you could have picked, right? Like, I mean, sorry.
There's a sacrifice.
I feel strongly about this, as you can tell.
No, I agree with you, Beth. There's a sacrifice between speed and efficiency and customization. I mean, every single time. And I want to bring up this because you were just basically saying what I was about to say, Beth. We had a LinkedIn user that said, I'm interested in an app to teach clinical research fundamentals not taught in colleges to future researchers, and even an app to engage patients in better research outcomes for safety. Now, I'm just using this as an example. So in this particular case, there may be solutions out there, Bubble or other low code, no code solutions that could potentially solve for this problem, right? For this use case, but maybe not. And I was basically going to say what you were saying, Beth, which is that sometimes that's where you have to determine, okay, at what point is going and moving fast and cheap actually a hindrance down the road to the solution that I actually need, the actual solution to the problem I have or pain point. And what I would say is, you want to, my recommendation for like businesses or people who are going to build out this kind of stuff is you want to start with your no or low code, but you want to do it in a way and in a system where you're not boxed in if you need to transition over to a coding solution. So the best solutions to me are the ones that where you have the Lego bricks, but you always can turn the Lego brick over and customize it, or bounce off of that, or use that Lego bricks and then create something that's totally customized, a new Lego shape or feature or whatever that hasn't existed that's unique to your business. Because what you don't want to do is find out that you spent time or whatever standing up that website or that application or that app or whatever, only to find it doesn't actually solve your problems. It looks good. It feels good. It's got a user experience, but at the very end of it, you're like, oh man, but it actually doesn't do the one thing I actually need it to do. And so that's where I've seen people get in trouble before. On the flip side, I would say starting with a developer is probably not the best idea either, unless you already know you have a highly complex technical problem you're trying to solve, and in which case that may make sense from the get-go to get somebody in. If you know you're going to go to a coding solution, sure, absolutely bring a developer. But I will say myself, I'm not a developer, but for somebody who likes to geek out in the things that I'm interested in, when I've worked with clients, not just in my company now, but across the board, way back when I was working with people with the gym or whatever, I like the things I like. So if somebody comes to me and asks me to build them something, my mind is going to go a little bit probably more beyond what maybe the customer needs to solve the problem. That's natural. And if you're really, really good, you're coming back and saying, okay, it doesn't matter what I need, it's what the customer needs. So what I'll say is to bringing in developers too early is you might find yourself with an overly complicated, more complex solution than you actually need to solve the problem. So that's the
really
other
like
side.
Beth, that example was such a good parallel. The Wix example, you have plug and play availability, which is kind of a no code, solution. But then you're going to get situations where I want that space, like you said. You're going to get situations where that no code make automation that you set up with an API with AI, with the OpenAI, I'm sorry, you're gonna be like, well, I wanted to do one more thing. It's like, well, it can't do that. There's a canyon between this action and this action that you want to have happen. Just like I want a space here, right? And so you're going to realize that the no code options aren't going to fulfill the needs that you have as a client. And so I think that's pretty good parallel to what we're in the middle of right now. Like everybody's right now trying to help their clients achieve the goal using a no code solution, hopefully, but then it's going to slowly creep into. So I think when you're developing these solutions, you got to be able to, as Brian was articulating, have an out, have a way that you can bring in or inject a way to be more specific about the need. And so without having to rebuild the whole solution, which we've done dozens of times.
And that's something that Salesforce has again been doing. Like this is more automation than AI, although AI may be involved in bridging that code no code barrier, because Salesforce has basically had a Lego maker, so you could go to your dev and say, I want this functionality. They could build that Lightning Web component for you, and now it's a Lego. You didn't have to get in and do the code, but somebody else could press that Lego. Salesforce people are going to be like, Beth, I don't know where you got all this. This is how I see it. Jyunmi,
okay, so I got a little bit of either a different perspective or maybe a little bit of a pushback here.
Pushback, okay.
Say, sorry, Robert, can crib that from you. Uh, the I think especially where we're at right now with AI development. I think this is in general, but especially with AI development where it is right now and capabilities are right now, is I don't think it's so much of a worry or concern about leaving the out, right? Should we straddle the fence on this? Should we have this way to get out of it? I mean, it is a nice to have, but I don't think that's what should be stopping you in implementation. I think iteration and speed on that is going to be far more advantageous for you because of all of the barriers being lowered so much. You can do it, just go and do it. And if it doesn't work for you, or if it doesn't solve that one thing, like you said, Brian, iterate, throw it out, put something new in, right? There's so little, especially with like no code tools, there's so little turnaround, right, on iterating on your solution. So see what sticks. If it doesn't work, tweak it, or oh, this is not capable within this system. Go get a new system, right? We've talked about in the past where you don't want to be locked in or you really invested in anything. Well, I don't think you have to be anymore. Not with a lot of these tools. Like Karl, you mentioned Bubble, or Andy, you mentioned Flutterflow. Those are platforms that you can easily implement and iterate on whatever app or solution that you're trying to build. Things like Make and Zapier. I go back and forth between the two. Both of them have their good qualities and pros and cons and things like that. So I think nowadays that the barrier is lowered so much so that you can just move quickly. You can accelerate, you can iterate. I don't think that should be a concern for you. I think you should take the time to really identify what you're truly trying to solve. But I don't think you need to be too worried about being locked into a platform or a system. I think you'd be more worried about that if you had already made your investment, right? Now you feel obligated. Now you feel I've already spent this money and all those kinds of things. And I think there's a little bit of a logical fallacy there. You're going to save more money to get out if it doesn't actually do what you need to do. And I think that kind of goes to one of our audience members who had mentioned wanting to get an app to teach technical research fundamentals. Well, if you have that knowledge, if that's what you're looking for, you can build that yourself right now.
Mm-hmm.
Just go to
I was going to say on that point, the user who wants to do an app to teach something, there's a whole bunch of things ranging from LMSs. They're out there like Canvas and Thinkific, but you have to pay for those things. But there's a lot of very inexpensive or free online course generators. Not only will the AI that's underneath that platform, typically GPT-4, will generate the content for the course, or at least the outlines and the structure of the course, but then the online course application builders who have used probably low code or no code tools to deliver those online course generators, and there's really a proliferation of those out there right now, it'll actually build the process by which you then deliver that to the users and enroll users, market to the users for the online course. All that's available for you right now. So go out and try it. It's a brave new world.
I wanted to mention I
was muted.
There's 2 points. One is this article 3 weeks ago about Replit CEO outlines they just got a fresh $20 million investment to achieve artificial developer intelligence, right? So it's like AI will be the one doing the development, which actually then connects it. I connected to, hey, isn't that what we're talking about when we talk about agents?
Yep.
Because it's just, hey, I want a goal, and then you just execute on that goal. And included in that is building whatever application you need to build through whatever it is, right? So I'm surprised, Robert, you didn't open the door, because I thought that is where we're going. That's where I think like I don't need to build anything. I can just say, hey, this is the goal. These are all the things I want to do, and go build it. Right?
Well,
it's not like
agents are coming. As soon as agents get released with Q Star, then we're going to be
that's Friday.
We're going to be
Friday.
But I will say back to Andy, just I was trying to say my mic was off. The key to that user's request, Andy, was not taught in college. So that's gonna put the onus of the app designer. You got to have the intel. You got to have the knowledge. You're going to have to feed it what you want it to be taught, because if it's not taught, then it's not known by the LLM, hypothetically speaking. So that's where the real challenge is going to be on that request. But I do have to go, and I want to ask if you could answer this question, Karl. Where is the
I sent in the chat. I put it in.
Okay.
There was a GitHub that they have those rankings coming
of the GPTs. Okay, cool.
Of the GPTs, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and Nick posts on about Grimoire on X a lot, and they are referencing their rankings and showing the link.
What's
to
Nick's last name?
Dobos, DOBOS.
I posted that in the chat too.
Okay,
it's not showing up on my chat for some reason.
I'm not seeing it. Yeah, I'm not seeing it.
It's in the Daily Show. Like if you go to our LinkedIn page,
people who are watching us.
No, they're not.
Thanks everybody for joining. Right? Yeah, thank you.
Speaking of, we'll sort of wrap up today. I did want to shout out a couple people, because we had quite a few different commenters, even just on what we can see on StreamYard. So thank you, Adrian. Thank you. Loving the streams. We'll be here. Keep coming back every single day. Let us know your feedback, please. We're always looking for ways to make it better. I don't know if we mentioned this one, but Rich was saying talking about Zapier, something I've known for years, but I'm now just dabbling, sort of like what you were saying, Robert. And how complex it can be. I'm right there with you, Rich. Zapier can stop me in my tracks. What usually happens is it's Zapier. Okay, I know what I want to do. Shit, I don't know how to do that. Kind of ChatGPT, how do I do this? Hey, YouTube, how do I do this thing? Then I circle all the way back around, which is a good throw out for Bard. Now will summarize YouTube videos directly in Bard, and it's pretty cool. So that's a little throw out there if you guys want to go check that out. It is part of the experimental lab part of Google, so you have to be signed into that. But you can throw a YouTube link in there and it'll help you summarize it, which could be super helpful if you're just trying to get bullet points. And then listen, we already mentioned the GPT rankings. Rich said exactly. And I think we hit all the other ones on there. I think this one is the drag and drop wizard option best for those with no coding experience. Yeah, for sure. There's so many different variations of that, but the Lego idea or the puzzle piece idea of dragging something onto it, like the Wix, and Wix and all those, website makers have gotten so much better over the years, where you were super, super limited as to what you could do. And now because of AI and different things, you can actually not even write. I think in a lot of cases, you can simply turn on your mic and say, this is what I'm looking for. Or we know with ChatGPT with Vision, I can draw it and then I can say, this is what I'm looking for, or ask for the code for it. So there's a lot of different ways. I don't think it's always drag and drop. What I will say, what I would agree, I think all of us agree on, just as we wrap this up, is AI is going to continue to help bridge that gap between probably low code and no code. And we know that the no-code solutions are only going to get more powerful over time. And then, Karl, you kind of mentioned about pushing towards agents. What that makes me think of is you no longer have to invest a ton of time in stuff, because there's so many solutions that are only for a short period of time. So, for instance, like going to volunteer at the Metropolitan Ministries tent, their holiday tent. Well, that's only for a short period of time. They only may need an application for 6 weeks of the year. And now what's going to enable them, like a nonprofit, is to probably stand that up and have it look really professional and solve their big pain point for both them and their internal and external, for the customers as well as them. And they're going to be able to do it very, very quickly with somebody who is not a developer. And I think that's super powerful for sure. So, okay, that's it. Any other last comments on this before we wrap it up?
Get out there and make stuff.
Yeah,
that's right. Go play, because we need more people who are willing to go out there and play and be able to connect the dots. So never a bad skill to have. All right, that's it for today. Tomorrow we have a really cool episode talking about AI art? Is it theft? Is it is AI stealing, or the ChatGPTs of the world stealing from artists? It's a hot topic. It is a hot topic. I will say that Aaron has done a ton of research to prepare for this.
Yes.
He'll be here tomorrow to help us lead off that chat. Wednesday, we got the news. Thursday, we are talking about the 1-year anniversary of ChatGPT being publicly available. That was November 30th of last year. And then Friday, we will be talking about Q Star. So if you ever want to understand Q learning, Karl will probably be heading that one off, although I've done all the deep dives that Karl's now shared with me and ruined my weekend. I was standing literally in lines at Busch Gardens, standing in lines, ChatGPTing, Q learning, and Q Star, and A Star, and where they connect. That's Friday. We all needed more time to get ready for Friday. So come back all week. We got tons of stuff for you guys to learn, interact with. Thank you for all the comments. And we will see you guys tomorrow. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Happy
Bye.
Monday.